The moment Elena's newborn daughter let out her first cry, the entire room softened, except for her husband. While doctors smiled and placed the tiny, blinking miracle onto Elena's chest, Mark's expression hardened into something cold and unrecognizable. Then, with the entire maternity ward watching, he demanded the unthinkable. He wanted to give up their baby girl. Gasps filled the room. Elena froze, clutching her child as though shielding her from a storm no one else saw coming. But what happened next shocked every doctor present, because a quiet, trembling mother transformed into something unbreakable. The winter morning was still pale when the ambulance doors swung open and carried Elena into the maternity hospital. Snowflakes clung to her hair like tiny stars, melting into her dark curls as nurses rushed to wheel her inside. The contractions had grown brutal on the drive over, each one demanding more of her, tearing through her body with the stubborn force of a child determined to enter the world. She gripped the metal rail of the stretcher, her knuckles white, her breath sharp and trembling. Her husband, Mark, strode behind them, his jaw tight, his eyes fixed somewhere far ahead, as if unwilling to acknowledge the moment they had spent years preparing for. Everyone who saw them assumed the tension in his posture was fear for his wife. No one imagined what truth hid beneath that rigid expression. Nurses murmured reassurances, assuming the couple was simply overwhelmed as many new parents were. None of them yet sensed the quiet storm approaching. Inside the birthing suite, Elena's world became heat and pain and pushing. Sweat gathered on her forehead despite the cold outside, and tears, of effort not sorrow, slipped down her cheeks. The midwife, an older woman named Vera, whispered steady encouragements. "You're strong, Elena. You're almost there. Your daughter is almost here." The word daughter made Elena's heart expand even through the agony. She had imagined little else for the past 9 months. The ultrasounds, the first fluttering kicks, the soft rhythm of the heartbeat that lived inside her. She had lovingly folded tiny dresses, decorated a crib, chosen delicate pastel colors. She had dreamed of braiding her daughter's hair, of watching her run through grass with laughter spilling behind her like a ribbon. But every time the subject of their baby being a girl came up, Mark had grown silent. At first, Elena thought it was simply that he had imagined a son. Many fathers did. She brushed away the unease, telling herself it was natural, that once he held the baby, everything would change. Now, as the final push came, and the room filled with the first sharp cry of their newborn, Elena's tears finally turned to joy. Her daughter's voice, tiny, fierce, alive, seemed to echo through her entire being. She collapsed back on the pillow, exhausted, trembling, but overflowing with awe. Vera lifted the newborn gently. "She's perfect," she whispered, and even the nurses smiled warmly at the squirming little life in her arms. But Mark's face did not soften. His hands remained in fists at his sides. Elena didn't notice. She was too focused on watching her daughter being wrapped in a warm blanket. She reached out eagerly, her arms open and trembling with longing. The moment the baby touched her chest, Elena felt something shift inside her. Some ancient, powerful instinct that told her she would burn down the world before letting anything harm this tiny creature. The nurse adjusted the blanket and stepped back to give them space. "She's healthy," she said softly. "Congratulations." Elena sobbed a laugh of relief. She touched the baby's cheek with trembling fingers. "Hello, my little star," she whispered. The baby quieted instantly, as if recognizing her mother's voice. Then, unexpectedly, Mark stepped forward. "I need to speak with the doctor," he said, his voice flat, controlled. Everyone in the room paused. Vera exchanged a brief glance with the nurses, sensing something she didn't like. Elena looked up at him, confused. "Mark, what's wrong?" she asked, shifting her daughter protectively against her chest. He didn't answer her. Instead, he turned to the doctor, who had just finished updating the chart. "I want to know what can be done about this situation." The room fell silent. The doctor blinked, unsure what he meant. "I'm sorry, sir. What situation? Mark exhaled through his nose as if he had been holding in frustration for too long. We agreed we weren't ready for a girl. I told my wife this. I want options. Adoption, transfer, something. We can't take her home. The nurse closest to him froze, her face going pale. The doctor stiffened, disbelief flashing across his features. Vera instinctively stepped closer to Elena, as though shielding her. Elena's world seemed to stop. She stared at her husband, the father of her child, unable to understand the words coming from his mouth. At first she thought she'd misheard him. She waited for him to laugh awkwardly, to say he was overwhelmed, that he didn't mean it. But Mark's expression was cold, resolute. "Mark," Elena whispered, her chest tightening painfully. "What are you saying?" He finally looked at her, and his eyes were filled not with love or relief or wonder, but irritation. "I told you from the beginning, I need a son, someone to carry on the name, someone who will take over the business one day. I wasn't going to raise a daughter. You knew that." Elena felt as though a knife had been pushed straight into her heart. "That was a joke," she said hoarsely. "I thought you were joking. I wasn't." His tone was ice. "You should have listened." A murmur of disapproval rippled through the room. Even the doctor couldn't remain passive. "Sir," he said firmly, "this is your child. You can't just—" "I can," Mark snapped. "And I am. I won't sign anything. I won't take her home." Elena clutched her daughter closer, her own body curling instinctively around the newborn, as if her arms alone could protect her from every cruelty in the world. Tears blurred her vision. "Mark," she whispered, voice trembling, "look at her, please. She's ours. How can you say this? How can you—" "She is not what I wanted," he said. "I told you. You should have made different decisions." A shocked gasp escaped one of the nurses. The doctor stepped forward, anger threading into his voice. "Sir, I'm going to ask you to step out of the room. Your wife just gave birth, and she needs peace, not—" "No," Elena said suddenly. The whole room turned toward her. Her face, though streaked with tears, transformed. For the first time since the birth, she truly looked at her husband, looked and saw him clearly. Something inside her, that had once bent to him, now straightened with frightening strength. "No," she repeated, her voice quiet but powerful. "He doesn't need to step out of the room. He needs to hear me." Mark frowned. "Elena, this isn't the time. It's exactly the time." Her hands shook, but she did not loosen her hold on her daughter. Instead, she lifted the baby slightly so Mark could see her tiny, delicate face. "This is our child," Elena said. "She is perfect, she is innocent, and she deserves a father who can love her without conditions." He scoffed. "You're being dramatic." "No, I'm being a mother." The words struck the room with the weight of a declaration. Mark opened his mouth to argue, but Elena's voice cut through him like steel. "You don't want her?" she asked. "Then leave, right now, because I will never let you take one step near us if you can't accept her. This child will be raised by people who see her worth. She will be loved for who she is, not for what you wanted her to be." "Elena," he said impatiently, "don't make this emotional." "I just gave birth," she said. "Everything about this is emotional. But it's also clear." Her eyes, though shining with tears, were unwavering. "If you walk out because she's a girl," Elena whispered, "then don't come back. Not tomorrow, not in a week, not ever." The silence that followed was suffocating. Mark stared at her, waiting for her to waver, to soften, to back down the way she had in countless arguments before. But she didn't. Not this time. And the longer he stood there, the more the room seemed to close around him with quiet condemnation. Nurses glaring, the doctor's jaw clenched, Vera shaking her head in disgust. Finally, Mark looked away. He muttered something under his breath that no one cared enough to decipher, grabbed his coat and stormed out of the room. The door slammed so loudly it echoed through the corridor. For a moment no one moved. Then Elena exhaled, as if she had been holding her breath since the moment the baby was born. Her tears fell freely now, not of loss but of relief, of fear, of transformation. Vera placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You did the right thing," she whispered. Elena nodded weakly, but her voice broke as she asked, "Will she be okay? Without him?" The doctor stepped forward, his stern expression softening. "She will be more than okay," he said, "because she has you." A nurse quietly handed Elena a fresh blanket and adjusted the baby's tiny cap. The newborn slept peacefully, unaware that her very existence had just rewritten the course of her mother's life. Elena kissed her daughter's forehead. "I'm here," she whispered. "I'll always be here." For the next hours, she held her daughter without letting go. She fed her, rocked her, memorized every detail. Her soft eyelashes, her button nose, the faint dimple on her left cheek. Nurses came in and out, bringing water, warm meals, gentle smiles. Word of what had happened had spread quickly through the maternity ward. Some looked at Elena with admiration, others with sympathy, but none with judgment. In the quiet of the night, long after visiting hours had ended, a soft knock sounded on the door. It was Elena's mother, wrapped in a thick winter coat, her breath visible in the cold hallway. She must have driven across the city the moment she got the message. She rushed to her daughter's bedside the instant she saw the tears on Elena's cheeks. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered, pulling her into a gentle embrace. "I'm so sorry." "He didn't want her," Elena said brokenly into her mother's shoulder. "He walked out because she's a girl." Her mother closed her eyes, pain flickering across her face. "Then thank God he walked out," she said firmly. "Because that man wasn't worthy of either of you." Elena cried harder, but her mother held her without wavering. When she finally pulled back, she smiled at the baby. "Let me see my granddaughter." She reached carefully, lifting the child with trembling hands. The baby stirred, then blinked up at her with curious eyes. "Oh, look at you," her grandmother whispered in wonder. "You beautiful little miracle." Elena watched the two of them, her mother and her daughter, and something inside her eased. 3 generations of women, bound together by love stronger than any man's disappointment. "I thought I'd be doing this with him," Elena admitted quietly. "The first diaper, the first bath. I thought." Her mother touched her cheek. "You're not alone," she said. "You have me, and you have her. And you have a future that's better than the one he would have given you." Elena nodded slowly. "I know." Over the next days in the hospital, Elena began to rebuild herself. She filed the necessary papers, spoke with administrators, made it clear Mark was not to be allowed access without her consent. Nurses supported her every step of the way. Some shared similar stories of other women who had found strength after betrayal. Others simply sat with her when she cried. By the time discharge day came, Elena felt both fragile and fierce. A storm rebuilt into something steadier, clearer. She walked through the hospital corridors with her daughter cradled in her arms and her mother by her side. Snow had stopped falling, leaving the world crisp and white. As they reached the sliding doors, Elena paused. The air outside was biting cold, but refreshing. She tightened the blanket around her baby and whispered softly, "You were worth everything." Her mother brushed a hand through her hair. "What will you name her?" Elena smiled, the first true smile since the birth hope. She said, "Because she saved me." The name seemed to float into the air like a promise. Hope, small, warm, and oblivious, slept peacefully in her arms, her tiny hand wrapped around one of Elena's fingers. As Elena stepped out into the winter morning, she knew the road ahead would not be easy. There would be custody battles, financial fears, nights of loneliness, questions from her daughter one day about the father who left. But Elena also knew something else with absolute certainty. She had made the right choice. She had chosen love over fear. She had chosen her daughter over a man who could not see her worth. She had chosen a future built not on someone else's expectations but on her own courage. And as she walked toward the car, her daughter's soft breath warming her heart, she whispered again, "Hope, you are my beginning." And for the first time in a very long time, Elena believed that her future, hers and her daughter's, would be beautiful,